There is a price to pay if you choose to speak up as a conservative mom and share your beliefs. But I feel like for a very long time, the price to pay if you spoke up was a steeper price for someone that was on the right side of the the political spectrum, who was a conservative, a Republican, a right-winger, whatever. I feel like that has been the case for a very long time now. Now, obviously, my views are kind of slanted and influenced by Hollywood, by the media. You guys know I'm a Los Angeles native. That's where I grew up. I grew up in the entertainment industry. I have family that was in the entertainment industry, and that is how I've kind of seen things for a long time. And honestly, I still kind of think that that is the general case, because I believe that in general, as I just said, general case, that the left-leaning worldview ideology is what tends to still be the dominant view in most of our institutions, in the entertainment industry, like I mentioned, in honestly the medical field, in academia. I feel like the left-leaning worldview is what kind of rules. And so, also I'm of course going to have my own bias because I am a right-winger who has felt the wrath of what comes down on you when you speak out about conservative views. Now, I have kind of a few thoughts that I want to hit on today in this video. I'm going to go through all of them. They're kind of all over the map because it's me. What else is new there? But I guess the first thing I want to start off with is just what I said at front, right at the beginning of this video, which is the fact that there are consequences. There's a cost that you have to pay for being an outspoken conservative mom. Now, I want to start by saying that I don't think that everybody has to share all of their views. There are people, specifically online, that I really admire that actually keep their views to themselves. And really, if you're paying that close of attention, you're going to know what their views are. They're choosing to let their theology come out of their fingertips. That's a phrase that I really like, that you will live out your theology, and they're choosing to purposefully keep their words non-combative, though I don't feel like I'm a combative person. I think it just really is kind of perspective, because some people might say that I'm very combative. Perspective. But they choose to keep controversial language out of their mouth, away from their topics. And I think their topics of discussion, I think that that's totally fine. And I do think, just like so many other things in life, everybody is called to do something different with their life, to lead their lives in their own specific way for their family, their personalities, their children's benefit, and everyone is different. So I do want to start by saying that. Part of the reason that I wanted to do this video is because of everything that has been going on in the media since Charlie Kirk's murder, his assassination, and that is cancel culture more towards the left side of the political spectrum. People who have spoken out basically saying that they, maybe making light of Charlie's death or making fun of it, or there's kind of a spectrum here, just basically saying something on the left side of the spectrum that people on the right haven't liked. And, I talked about this a little bit on Instagram because for a minute, Pam Bondi had spoken out and kind of made it seem like the government was going to go after people who spoke out harshly about Charlie's assassination. And I felt really like alarm bells, because as you guys know, if you watch my stuff, I am basically a free speech absolutist at this point in my life. I think that speech should not be criminalized by the government. Now, do I think that speech has consequences? Yes, obviously speech has consequences. And I don't want to say it should, but also I guess in the spirit of that sentiment, it should. Like, there are consequences to things in life. What I am against is the government acting against speech that they don't like, unless, and this is, I think, where I didn't clarify. I didn't actually say very much when I posted about it, unless there's a threat, like someone was saying, you can't go through an airport yelling, I've got a bomb, and not expect there to be, there's consequences to that, or threatening someone's life. There would be consequences, because that's a step beyond just expressing a different opinion. That is expressing the potential intent to physically hurt someone. And I don't disagree with the government stepping in a case like that. But what I do disagree with is what I just said, is if the government is going to try to step in and involve themselves in a situation where someone is just expressing maybe a dissident opinion compared to the people that are currently in power. That's actually part of what makes me such a free speech absolutist, is our specific system of government. Our government, I mean, I honestly, just in general, I think that speech and discussion and debate is a better alternative than violence. It's just a better situation. But also, our government here in the States pretty much flips every 4 years. And I do think there is this element of like, when we make moves, because we have the government that we have, we should consider also just, right, being like a nice, good person, potentially. I think that we should consider what the other group of people on the other side of the spectrum, how they're going to feel, how they may want to retaliate when, if and when, and most likely it's just when, they acquire power again. What are they going to be able to turn around and weaponize back on us, or just out of anger turn around and swing back? And I think that that's something that is definitely worth considering when we are taking action against people that we disagree with, you know, like, how would you like it if that was done to you, type of thing. That being said, like I mentioned, speech does have consequences, and I feel two ways about the current cancel culture that's kind of unfolding between us. First off, I am not against an employer firing someone because they said something online that they find extremely distasteful. I'm a big believer in employers being able to hire and fire who they want based on their values. I don't think that anyone should be forced to hire someone that they completely disagree with and don't want within their company culture. That being said, it does feel a little bit different than trying to, like, that feels a little different than people trying to bully companies into firing someone, like, you better fire them or else. I also think you better fire them or else is different than we would really like you to fire this person, or otherwise I'm not going to be giving my money to your business moving forward because I am so disgusted by this person's action. I cannot patron, whatever the word would be, your business anymore because I'm so disappointed in that. So do with that what you want, but I just have to let you know that I'm really disappointed in this situation. Like, letting a company know that you're disappointed is also different to me than bullying and pressuring and trying to cancel that company, like humiliate them, drag them through the mud publicly. Like, that's different than letting people know that you're disgusted by an action and, hey, did you guys see this? Because this is pretty wrong. At least in my opinion, I think there's nuance there. And watching these cancellations take place definitely does make me a little bit nervous, though nervous might be maybe a bit of a dramatic word. But I feel this way in general about a lot of the things that have been unfolding in this last year in regards to immigration stuff, in regards to vaccine stuff. It does make me nervous for who is going to be president and in power the next time around. As someone who has been a hardcore victim of cancel culture, like a legit victim of cancel culture, that feeling for me is that way based on my own experiences. You know, I think that some personalities could feel like the opposite, like angry for what's happened to them. So it's like, yeah, let's get them. And I can see that. I mean, that's maybe if there's like a different version of that for kind of what I said of like, yeah, express yourself. If you don't like something, tell these companies, tell people. But the aggressive like push to get people fired from jobs, I actually think we are potentially creating a whole group of unhinged, crazy people who have nothing left to lose in their minds and are potentially setting them up to be, I mean, yeah, just what I said, unhinged. And I don't like that, not only for obvious reasons of what I just said, but also the idea of putting other people through some version of what I went through sounds really horrifying. Now, am I justifying these people that said horrible things about Charlie and his family and his death? No, I think it's wrong. And that's why I do think that we should speak out and tell businesses, schools, whatever, if someone that's on their staff did something that was horrifying, like tell them, because it's wrong and it's gross and it's so sad. But in that same breath, I have seen a handful of people online who have gotten in trouble. I don't know if they've been fired or put on leave or what, but who got in trouble for saying something that I don't even think was that bad. Like, there's a big difference between in my opinion, there's a big difference between celebrating the death of a human being, saying like, I watched it over and over, good, I'm glad he's dead, something horrifying like that, versus someone saying, hey, I don't think anybody should die for their political beliefs. That's so sad. but you can't ask me to mourn for the loss of a person who I actually think was hurting my community of people or that I completely disagree with. Honestly, I look at that and I go, oh, okay, like freedom of speech, different opinions. Those are the people that I don't think should be bullied at their jobs into like their jobs firing them or harassed endlessly as being heartless people. Because honestly, I would feel the same way. If someone that I vehemently disagreed was horribly killed like this, I would never want someone to be brutally murdered like this. It's so sad, just the way and how he died in front of his family, in front of everyone. The whole world was low-key traumatized. It's so horrifying and sad. And yet at the same time, if it was someone that I personally think was low-key evil or disagreed with them vehemently or both, I wouldn't be like crying tears that they're not here to like spew their nonsense anymore. You know what I mean? I would be like, wow, that's really sad for their family. That was horrifying to watch, all of the above. But people are allowed to have opinions, at least in America, at least they should be. And so I do think there is something to not trying to just make life miserable for people who just disagree with you. And disagreeing is different than saying, I'm glad this person died, or I watched this over and over, or you know what, good, like you were against guns, you're out of here. Like, I think there's a difference, or like we said, threatening language, threatening violence, making it seem like anyone who holds those beliefs has it coming. Those are different. And part of me feels like it's pointless to say this, but part of me feels like, no, it's good to have this perspective because we live in a country right now where power could essentially flip every 4 years, every 8 years. It can flip back and forth. And the thing is, I think, this whole concept of do unto others as you would have them do unto you is worth considering and worth walking out. Also, because like I said, I think if you hurt other people purposefully like that, they're likely to turn around and swing back. But B, even if you being nice to other people and letting them have their ability to speak freely and process through things in a potentially violent way results in them swinging back anyways, at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror at night before you go to bed, before you wake, or when you wake up in the morning. You are going to have to stand before God one day when you die. And so even though, yes, we are here for such a time as this, God put us here on this planet now, and we are supposed to be deliverers of truth. We are supposed to protect and dwell on what is good and right and true and lovely. We are called to love people, and love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. I can't remember the rest of the verse, so I feel like a really bad Christian. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always hopes, always trusts, always perseveres. Love never fails. So the thing is, regardless of what other people, how they react to us, we are called to love people, and we are called to speak truth. And I think being Christian moms in this day and age, like I said, we were made for this time. We are here at this time. And so I talked about this a little bit in my last video, my last commentary video. People tend to feel like, these times are so horrible. Like, how can we have children in times like these? But I am a big believer that times have always been hard. It's kind of just like a choose your hard kind of thing, even though we didn't choose it and we were just born here. But that's the point, is we were made for these times. And for us to be able to process through these difficult topics with our children and have conversations with other adults, I think instills bravery and critical thinking in our kids and is a worthwhile pursuit. Now, like I mentioned, I think at the beginning, there is a cost that comes with speaking out. The cost can be minimal, although what's minimal to one person might be a lot to someone else. It could be friendships, relationships. It could be a job. In Charlie's case, it was his life. And that is why a lot of people consider him to be a martyr. But I think Charlie losing his life put things into perspective for a lot of people, because I think very few people are going to lose their life for their beliefs. And seeing that he went out in a blaze of glory, man, I think really brought perspective to a lot of people in terms of why it is important, the intensity of the times that we live in, and just truly how important it is to share with people the love of God, the love of Christ, and the gospel. And I feel very, just hear me when I say this, I feel very like both sides. So don't feel judged if you're someone who like doesn't speak about any of this at all, because I truly believe that people have different roles in life, that God assigns them to different tasks. But there is a verse, and I don't remember the reference, but it's seek first the kingdom of God, and all of these things will be added unto you. And so if you're someone that has felt led to have conversations with other people, to share your heart with someone, to share your mind, and you're afraid because of what the consequences might be, I think that that's a good verse to meditate on, that we are ultimately supposed to seek first the kingdom of God. And the thing is, money, jobs, our house, our health, so many things in life are relative. And honestly, a lot of the times the fear of what could actually happen is scarier than what will actually happen when we step out in faith and do what we feel like God is calling us to do. Not only do our own minds tend to build up the fear of something like, I don't want to do that, that's scary, but also we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against dark forces and Satan. And I do think that the devil tries to get into our heads to add fear to the equation, to make us afraid to speak out, to think that if we do, we could lose everything. Sometimes it's actually the opposite. And I actually think eternally and spiritually, it is the opposite in terms of relationships, in terms of provision. I think that when we follow the calling that God has on our lives, what he wants us to do day in and day out, speaking truth into our children's lives, in our relationships, whatever arena that we are feeling called to speak truth into and to have conversations in, I think that there is a reward there that sometimes can be, like I said, relationally, sometimes it can be monetarily, sometimes it's just emotionally and spiritually, a peace, a knowing that when we go to bed at night, when we look ourselves in the mirror, when we wake up in the morning, that we can feel good about the fact that we are following what we know God is asking us to do. And ultimately, here's the thing, our kids are only going to be kids for so long. So there's kind of a two-sided thing there. Yes, the point of like, soak up the time that you have with your children while they're children, like let them enjoy their childhood. You enjoy their childhood. But I mentioned this in one of my other videos, like reading books from the Puritans. Maybe it was like a history book. I don't remember. This was like 3 years ago. I was in like a Puritan phase. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was this concept that they were really preparing their children for adulthood. And I think that sometimes we live in a culture now that likes to extend childhood and yet simultaneously rush children into growing up. And I felt this as a kid too. I felt that a lot of my peers were very jaded and maybe over-sexualized in a lot of ways. Like they were too mature in things that I deemed like, whoa, I don't think that that's what God wants from it. Like I think we're supposed to slow down and not rush these things. And then simultaneously, there was a lot of immaturity around things like gossip, honestly, planning for the future, growing their skills. It was very much about like going on dates when they were like 12, like doing things that just seemed inappropriately mature for their age and simultaneously inappropriately immature. That's something in regards to speaking truth in whatever arena we are in with our children, out in public, whatever it is, but specifically with our children, realizing that they're going to grow up to be adults. They're going to have a lot of adult questions. They have a soul, they have a spirit. And I do think that in a lot of ways, kids can feel God because they are fresher out of heaven. Like they are fresher to this earth and they feel the spiritual world. They feel darkness. They feel life. They feel death. And so being willing to speak in an age-appropriate way that's truthful with them, I think is important. So yeah, is there a cost that comes with speaking out as a conservative mom? Yes, but a top question that I get asked all the time is how to find community. How did you find your community? How did you find your homeschool group? How did you hook up with this group of freedom loving mamas? And to be honest, the way that I found these people is by speaking my truth, by sharing the things that I deem to be true. And this is not like, oh, just because I'm pseudo social media famous. It's literally because of the stuff that I've said that I would trigger things in other people. And they're like, oh, do you know so-and-so? One of my current homeschool co-ops came from a conversation with another mom at the beach. And I kind of tend to do this. I'll like drop my heaviest takes like pretty fast sometimes so that someone knows and I'm not developing a like false friendship based on things that just like if they knew this about me, they wouldn't be my friend. Also to open the door if they're curious, I'll make jokes about being like an extreme right winger and like, yeah, no, we're anti-vaxxers, or yeah, a big part of the reason we moved here is because the state has such incredible homeschool laws. Like I will bring these things up. I will speak what I deem to be truth, what my truth is. And while that has cost me a lot, it has also brought me closer and closer to community that is authentically aligned with who I am, where I'm at, and the life that my family is trying to build. So there is a cost, but there is and can and is, you know what I'm saying, also be a reward. So mamas, you've got this. It is more important than ever in my mind to focus on truth, focus on God's word, focus on being willing to have conversations in the arenas that you feel like God is asking you to have conversations with your loved ones, with your children, family, friends, social media, though I hesitate to throw that in there because I do feel like sometimes social media can just be a bunch of noise. But obviously, people are called to speak into this space. I'm feeling that calling. That's why I'm here right now. And I pray that this video was able to encourage and bless some of you out there. And I want to hear from you guys in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Any stories that you're willing and wanting to share, I would like to hear them. Also, I didn't say this in the video, but I feel like I should throw this on here as a PS, like someone who's experienced cancel culture. I know that my cancellation was about very specific things, but I think that those very specific things were actually tied directly to my faith and my worldview. I think some of the people that canceled us actually were waiting for a reason to cancel us because of my faith and my worldview. And really, while I haven't gone too much off the deep end to explain our whole situation with the adoption and where we really ended up, it is directly tied to our worldview. And the same thing with my view around birth and our view around the difference between humans and animals and what is more important. I've had my experience with cancel culture, and I have had many moments actually in recent time where I've thanked God for that experience, as painful as it was, because in a lot of ways, He took so much away from me to where I have that feeling of like, all right, Lord, I don't need to depend on that. I can depend on you because look at how you took me through life and took care of me and my family, even when we felt like we had lost everything. And it turns out we didn't lose everything. And now I would be going back and repeating myself. You got the gist. So that's it, guys. I pray, like I said, that this video blessed you, and I will, God willing, see you guys back here with another new video. Feel free to leave video requests, topic requests, all of that down below, and I will see you soon. All right. Bye, guys.